In 1996, a specialized team from Spain's Guardia Civil embarked on a risky mission to delve into the depths of the Cueva del Agua, a cave that, at first glance, appeared to be just a simple water-filled cavern. Led by two courageous and experienced cave divers, the team pushed beyond recommended limits, unknowingly setting the stage for a sequence of alarming incidents. In today's video, I will share multiple accounts from this cave, each story more chilling than the last. Viewer discretion is advised. Rumors have been circulating within the global diving community about a cave in Spain with an extensive underground system, allegedly connected to countries worldwide, including distant ones like China. This network, consisting of underground rivers, promised to be a very significant archaeological find if fully explored and verified. Motivated by this excitement, numerous adventurers have pushed the limits of the cave, aiming to be the first one to make this groundbreaking discovery. However, this mission has proven dangerous, and some have paid with their lives. In light of these incidents, news teams have provided extensive coverage, including the rescue efforts. In response, the authorities took immediate action. They installed warning signs at the cave's entrance and constructed fences to restrict access. However, these measures have not deterred determined divers and explorers. As a result, those brave enough to risk entering the cave despite the potential threats to their lives have broken through these barriers, including chains and braces. In the early 1990s, two French divers perished in the cave under mysterious circumstances. They ventured in, unaware of the risks, and disappeared. A rescue attempt was deemed too risky and was aborted, as the likelihood of additional fatalities was high. The remains of these French divers were eventually discovered years later by other divers who ventured deep into the cave but were fortunate enough to return. Surprisingly, this tragic event did not deter others from exploring the cave but encouraged further exploration. The cave's allure is so strong that, according to residents, groups of divers come every weekend, seeking to navigate its easily shallow passages and emerge safely, eager to share their experiences. But very few of them venture deep into the cave. Perched precariously near the main road near El Mahón, the entrance to Cueva del Agua stands at a gateway to an intense cave system. The water inside is not just warm, it's almost hot, unnervingly still, creating sections with silt and mud. It splits into two distinct sectors. One, a brief passage leading towards the sea that is not too hard to navigate, and the other, a sprawling, more extensive route burrowing deep into the mountain about 3,281 feet, or about 1,000 meters. Journeying to the end of this extensive section, extreme explorers must navigate a claustrophobic maze of galleries. In cave diving, the challenges and risks are magnified beyond the comprehension of those accustomed to normal cave diving. Unlike open water, where the surface is always an escape route, cave divers are locked into a labyrinth of darkness, forced to retreat their path meticulously to find their way back to safety. The most daunting aspect of cave diving is the visibility, or rather the complete lack of it. Imagine being surrounded by a dense blackness that you see nothing even with a flashlight in your hand, right in front of your mask. It's not just limited to visibility, it's akin to blindness. You can't see anything at all. This phenomenon isn't exclusive to caves. Wreck divers often encounter similar conditions. But in the narrow confines of a cave, the situation becomes exponentially more critical. A safety line is a lifeline in these conditions. It's astonishing how quickly it can become entangled. And remember, in this blindness, untangling it is extremely hard. Cave divers, therefore, are a breed apart, equipped with specialized gear and a mindset tuned to these extreme environments. Their equipment is meticulously chosen and doubled for redundancy: tanks and regulators, computers, and often 3 lights instead of just the usual 2. They carry extra masks, wings, and double bladder systems, jump reels, mains, markers, and bailout bottles. The team's protocol for navigating the cave is precise. The lead diver sets the course, managing the jump reels and marking the exit. The last diver must then discern the correct path on the way out, a task complicated by the fact they didn't place the markers themselves. Diving with trusted and familiar teammates is essential in such environments. But beyond the physical and technical challenges lies a more insidious danger: the lure of exploration. Caves can be mesmerizing, tempting divers to venture just a little further, to explore just one more unseen corner. This temptation and the fact that divers must feel perfectly fine, breathing easily, creates a false sense of security. The lure of the unknown, the thrill of discovery, can cloud judgment, leading even experienced divers into peril. This is the key reason why many seasoned divers steer clear of underwater caves. They understand the irresistible pull of these mysterious realms and the tragic tales of those who have succumbed to their allure. They know that in the silent, lightless depths of a cave, a diver's greatest adversity is their own curiosity and desire for adventure. Years after the harrowing incidents at the Cueva del Agua, the cave's reputation as a diver's perilous challenge was again affirmed. This time, the diver caught in the cave's treacherous embrace was Antonio Pedro Martinez Ardes, a 41-year-old family man and an employee at the Casco Antigua diving establishment in Murcia. Antonio, known for his adventurous spirit, had ventured into Cueva del Agua with a plan to explore its uncharted section solo. He was well aware of the risks involved, having mentioned to a friend the possibility of him getting trapped himself. But he wasn't as concerned because he knew the cave was filled with many air pockets. While offering temporary refuge, these pockets posed a significant threat, especially if his air supply dwindled before rescue could arrive. Despite being a dive instructor, Antonio had underestimated the cave's complexity and danger. This was his first foray into the cave, so technically challenging and riddled with unpredictable offshoots. When the emergency call was made, well past the time Antonio should have returned, the highly skilled specialists from the GEAS were summoned. Their mission was to find and rescue Antonio. The two GEAS divers entered the cave. However, upon entry, they were met with conditions that made even the simple act of reading their dive watches impossible. The visibility was so severely obstructed that they faced an impossible challenge. With a heavy heart, they were forced to call off the search. The following day brought renewed hope, as additional GEAS divers arrived from Madrid. The team set up a guideline, a critical addition to aid the 10 divers in progressing through the cave. Despite these preparations, their efforts were unsuccessful because of the cave's persistently cloudy water. The murky navigation conditions, a death wish, and the risk of entering the cave's numerous offshoots deemed too great. The search for Antonio in the depths of the Cueva del Agua evolved into an intense and large-scale operation involving over 100 personnel from various emergency services. The discovery of Antonio's body marked a devastating moment, extinguishing the last flickers of hope held by his loved ones. The operation to retrieve his body was tense with challenges and complexities. Initially scheduled for 6 p.m, the body recovery had to be expedited due to poor coordination with government services. The acceleration in this operation's timeline added a layer of intensity and risk. People close to the rescue efforts expressed concerns about this hasty approach because corners were cut to make the time. Unfortunately, Antonio's body was never recovered due to the extreme risks, and the recovery was permanently called off. Ironically, 2 other Antonios were interested in exploring the depths of the mysterious cave. Neither of them had a relation to Antonio Pedro Martinez Ardes, who died in the cave just after his 41st birthday. Antonio Soler and Antonio Guerra, childhood friends from a small Spanish village, dreamed of joining the prestigious Guardia Civil, also known as the GEAS. They committed to rigorous physical training, studied law and criminal psychology to meet the force's high standards. Working together, they overcame tough exams and interviews. Their teamwork paid off, and they achieved their lifelong goal of becoming disciplined and respected members of the Guardia Civil. March 29, 1996 was the planned date for a specialized team from the distinguished Guardia Civil to embark on a mission to explore the Cueva del Agua. The GEAS, renowned for their prowess in aquatic search and rescue, was tasked with a critical assignment. At the time, controversy had become the center of a heated debate among the residents. The heart of this dispute lay in the cave's accessibility, a continuous issue that split the community between those clamoring for its reopening and those advocating for its continued closure, citing safety concerns and the refusal to extend rescue operations for those daring to venture within the cave. Their agenda was ambiguous yet fraught with complexity, to delve into the cave's depths and ascertain its suitability for public exploration. This was no ordinary undertaking. It was a decision that bore the weight of public safety and scientific research. Leading the expedition were Antonio Soler and Antonio Guerra, who were handpicked for their exceptional skill and expertise in cave diving. Supporting them were a pair of divers that would stay outside of the cave but were prepared to enter in case there was some sort of emergency. The dive plan was pretty simple, yet to be executed with the utmost caution. This was an extremely dangerous mission, but because of the Antonio's extensive training, they weren't expecting too many problems. But the divers were to test newly acquired equipment, which required technical acumen and an intuitive understanding of the gear's nuances. The first part of the expedition was to penetrate the cave to a predetermined point, either a third of their gas supply or the second juncture of the gallery tuple, approximately 600 feet or 200 meters from the entrance, whichever threshold was reached first. As the Antonios descended, their pace was deliberate, a slow swim through the water that allowed them to take on the eerie beauty of the cave. The warmth of the waters, a comforting 82 degrees Fahrenheit or 28 degrees Celsius, added a surreal quality to their expedition. After a meticulous descent, the pair found themselves in a gallery named Distress, a notorious cave section characterized by its constricting, narrow passages and a floor laden with sediment. In cave diving, you want to kick your flippers to the sides. If you go up and down, it'll stir up the sediment and cause a blackout, and this section was known for that. It had multiple unexplored routes, and the Antonios were probably thinking about going down some of these. Yet, these paths were to remain untouched for now, as the mission's parameters were clear and strict. Occasional line disruptions, a perilous consequence of past rock collapses, further complicated the treacherous passages. Moving forward, they arrived at the pool tube, a signal that they were nearing the end of their designated route. This led them to the second T-junction, where they caught a fleeting glimpse of the Viscero Gallery's initial section, a sight that must have relieved them because this meant that they were near the end of their intended dive and they could turn back. Despite having a surplus of 20 bars of gas and an additional 2 minutes before their scheduled return, the conditions allowed for a slight extension. They then decided to push beyond the agreed limits and go into the unexplored sections. Then they continued, but they didn't realize they were hitting a depth of 688 feet or 210 meters. The cave passages were deceptive in how they were angled. Soon enough, they realized how deep they were, and at that depth, their gas was used much faster. So they had to begin their return to the cave entrance. A sudden and unnerving realization must have struck them as they began their ascent. The once tranquil blue waters had transformed into a murky haze, clouded with silt stirred up during their descent. This change must have cast a shadow of horror over their faces, as this is a cave diver's worst nightmare. Even when cave divers train for complete loss of visibility, most admit that it is tough and sometimes almost impossible to find your way out of a silted out cave passage, even if you have the dive line intact. If it is severed, you have no chance of getting out. Their seemingly straightforward mission spiraled into a scary challenge as they navigated the cave's silted out passages. Then their gear presented its first obstacle in the form of giant exhaled air bubbles. These seemingly innocuous bubbles triggered a cascade of rock and stone fragments upon colliding with the cavity's ceiling. This phenomenon significantly reduced visibility, wrapping the divers in a silt that complicated their quest to locate the correct passage to lead them to the cave exit. Amidst this unsettling environment, a critical error was made. A wrong turn on the dive line. At a pivotal junction where a left turn would lead them towards the entrance, they veered right, a decision attributed to the disorientating density of the water. This misstep set them on an unintended path, leading them away from their intended route. After approximately 10 minutes, they found themselves at the Gallery de la Chera entrance, a narrow passage not part of their planned route. Realizing their mistake, they faced a critical decision. Logic dictated a return to the extensive passage of galleries, returning to the pool of troops, and 606 feet or 185 meters to reconnect with the Gallery of Discord. However, in a baffling and perilous choice, driven perhaps by desperation as their air supply dwindled, they pressed forward, seeking an alternate exit, or somehow finding one of the air pockets. This decision marked their second critical error. Their hope of finding another way out pushed them deeper into the cave's labyrinth network. They continued through the narrow passages, plunging to 820 feet or 250 meters, where visibility was reduced to mere inches. In this dire situation, they frantically searched for any sign of an exit, a glimmer of light that might offer salvation. But the cave was unforgiving, presenting only opaque, silt-laden waters. Persisting in the wrong direction for another 15 minutes, they reached a dead end. No further connections or pathways presented themselves, leaving them in a state of profound isolation and despair. At a daunting depth where the divers' lights only marginally penetrated the oppressive darkness, the pair found themselves engulfed in an almost complete lack of visibility. The two friends' situation grew increasingly perilous as they sought an exit, their hopes dwindling with each passing moment. After an additional 10 minutes of navigating this underwater maze, they confronted a stark reality. Their air tanks were basically empty. This realization must have struck them with a profound sense of isolation. With their air supply alarmingly low, a mere 5 minutes remaining, the pair were forced to confront the inevitability of their situation. They had no choice but to commence a cautious retreat, retracing their steps along the Gallery di Cera line for another 150 feet or 50 meters in a desperate bid to find their way to an air pocket. A chilling moment unfolded. Antonio Soler witnessed a sight that horrified him. The light from Antonio Guerra's flashlight was rapidly diminishing. In a heart-wrenching turn of events, Antonio Guerra had succumbed to hypoxia, the lack of sufficient air causing him to lose consciousness, his form disappearing into the murky depths. Antonio Soler faced a grim realization in the haunting silence of the Cueva del Agua. The weight of his situation bore down on him with crushing intensity. Alone in the depths, he understood his fate might mirror that of his lifelong friend Antonio Guerra. Desperate and determined, he pushed on, swimming to a new passage. Above ground, the surface team from the GEAS, Spain's elite underwater search and rescue unit, had been on edge. They were waiting for any sign of the divers. When an hour had passed without a word from them, the order was given: descend and search for their missing comrades. The urgency of the mission was obvious. Every second counted. The support divers, equipped with their gear, embarked on their mission. After conducting meticulous equipment checks, they entered the water, their minds focused on the daunting task ahead. However, the cave's visibility conditions were still horrible. The water's turbidity, a thick soup of sediment and silt, restricted their progress to just 90 feet or 30 meters. As time ticked away, the hope of finding the divers alive faded. Night fell, casting a shadow over the rescue efforts. An impressive deployment of rescuers, volunteers, and resources was made to aid in the search. The initial search, marked by its improvisation and high risk, yielded no results and had to be suspended. Yet, the rescuers' efforts did not relent. Day and night, the team persisted, clinging to the faintest sliver of hope that the divers might have found refuge in an air pocket. This operation brought together some of Spain's most highly skilled divers, including experts from the Navy Diving Center. For 35 arduous days, these experts toiled tirelessly, navigating the cave's challenging conditions. The operation was marked by a meticulous, methodical approach, with each team member contributing their expertise and experience, relentlessly pursuing closure. Finally, on May 1st, 1996, 34 days after the fateful dive, the operation reached a somber milestone. The lifeless body of Antonio Guerra was discovered about 600 feet or 95 meters from the cave's entrance. The following day, in a continuation of the exhaustive efforts, the team located the body of Antonio Soler, found 311 feet or 95 meters from the entrance of the same gallery. His body, just like his friend, was in the advanced state of decomposition. The high temperature of the water had sped up the process, adding another layer of complexity to the body recovery operation. After many deaths in this cave, plaques were placed near the cave's entrance, honoring the lost. Researchers insist the cave to be used for science, not tourism. Today, a local group, GRUPO CUEVA del Agua LIMITE 10,000, explores it, aiming to link it with nearby caves to reach 1,000 meters deep. I want to thank you for joining me today. If this story moves you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the next one.